Hey, everybody. Welcome back after the New Year break. This is our first webinar of 2026. This is a two-part series, the People ROI Playbook. Okay, so we're going to be talking about benefits, recognition, comp, a lot of things that you may already be doing, but we're going to look at it with fresh lens. So I'm Alex Grande, the CEO of RecognizeApp. We're a software that helps companies boost their employee engagement by making recognition, rewards, company values easy to track and to celebrate across the whole organization, no matter if companies are remote or hybrid or co-located. I'm here in Seattle, Washington, where, as you can expect, it is cloudy, and I'm sure it's going to rain at some point. But I'd love for everyone to put in the chat, where are you coming from? Where are you calling in from? Where do you work? Link to your company, right? Promote your business. It's a great chance to promote your business. What's your job title? What do you do? Where are you? And where do you work? Put it in the chat. The great thing about these live webinars, rather than maybe listen to a podcast or listening later, is that this is live. So you can actually connect with people in the chat right now. And we're all here together because we care about people and culture. And everyone in here cares about the same things you care about. So let's connect with people. So let's put that in the chat, where you're coming in from, link to your company, what's your job title, and let's get started from there. So we'll give people a couple minutes to get started. Awesome. We got people calling in from Oakland, right? Present. Florida. Awesome. Another organization from Cindy's in San Francisco, which is awesome. Carrie's calling in from Maine. I love that. San Diego. Dave, what's up? Austin, Texas. I used to live there. I'll be there in a couple months. I love Austin. Tim's in Utah. I love that. Look at all the people calling in. This is so cool. Awesome. Well, let's get started here. So the thing is, this is a two-part series, as I mentioned, on people and culture, helping you build people systems that actually hold up under pressure, right? So this session is about total rewards. It is about benefits. This is not a concept. This is not a list of programs. It's an operating system that your employees can understand, your managers can use, and your leaders can measure. That's the main point here. Awesome. Still people coming in. Got Chief People Officer coming from Detroit. Joyce, nice to have you on. Gina calling in from New York. Love that. Awesome. Let's get started. If you want to follow me, by the way, there's my link to my LinkedIn. It's really easy to remember. It's just LinkedIn/IN/my name, Alex Grande. So find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I love chatting with people. If I don't get back to you immediately, I definitely will get back to you within a couple of weeks. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but I would definitely get back to you. I love connecting with everybody I can. So, all right. So why does this matter now? Why does people and culture matter right now? It's so hard when I meet with leadership teams and they don't understand so much about what they need to do, right? I never hear from leaders that they don't care about their people, right? Every leader I talk to wants to be profitable, wants to be a best place to work, wants a great culture. But how they go about that may differ, right? And so that's why we can help them create systems and playbooks, understand that better, right? And the problem is not how much money you're spending. Oftentimes companies are spending enough on benefits and things like that, but they're not utilizing it in the best way, or they're not communicating it the best way, or it's not clear, right? So it's all about clarity, consistency, and connection, right? When a manager can't communicate value, leadership can't measure it, then what do? Right? So we need a measurable system with structured data and systems where managers know how to communicate these benefits. So we're going to do a survey in just a second, but some things that may feel familiar to you. And if you do, don't worry, you're not alone. One of the number one things is you have strong benefits in your company, but they're not underutilized, right? Your benefits package may look impressive on paper. You may have mental health resources, learning stipends, and et cetera. But employees don't know how to utilize it or where to utilize it, right? Or how to access it, rather. So we want to help them with that. If you're feeling that way, we'll put that into the survey in just a second. Another thing that happens a lot is that recognition feels random. Maybe you have that once a year recognition program, right? Or maybe the criteria is not clear, or maybe it's just, super basic of a recognition program. You can make a recognition program so much stronger when it's more structured and systematic. We'll talk about that in this talk today. Another thing is helping managers know how to communicate those comp conversations. If they don't know how to talk about salary, or they feel anxiety around talking about salary or talking about benefits, don't know how to talk about benefits, then they're just going to avoid it, right? And that's a problem. If employees are going into those one-on-ones and they never get to talk about what's really important, then that's a huge problem. Because that's a problem by the factor of how many employees you have. Managers you have, right? So if you have 20 managers, that's a 20x problem. Another thing is you may have a survey, which is great, but are you actually tackling the issues that are found in that survey? Oftentimes, HR especially is inundated with day-to-day minutia that they don't have actual time to actually go after something. So that's why we want to make simple, small changes that can be done over time and even work backwards. I love to look at my year goal. I have my whiteboard behind my desk here. Every month, I have January to December and what I want to accomplish each month. And I have it set by December and then I work backwards. That helps me understand the full plan. So that can really help with those action plans. But let's go ahead and do our first poll. So if Rue or Jess can help me out with that, the question is, wait for it to pop up. All right, here we go. So what is the hardest part of total rewards today? Of the things we just talked about there. What's the hardest part? Manager enablement, employee understanding, measurement, or budget restraints? Okay, across the board, all these issues, everyone kind of says all in the 20s, all in 20% of what's the part. That's usually when we do surveys, there's like one thing that's the call out. So look at that. We had all the things are a problem. Everything is a problem. Interestingly, of the percentages, budget constraints rather, is the smallest of the, they're all kind of similar. But I thought that was really interesting. The biggest ones seem to be employee understanding and measurement and proof. Well, measurement and proof actually can be some of the easier things to do when things are put in place, right? So being able to tie it to KPIs, that's why the more data in the recognition program, the better, right? The values, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and go forward. I love that. Employee understanding, that's interesting as well. Understanding the benefits, understanding why this is important. And we'll talk about a little bit of that in this talk. Cool. So the hidden cost, right? So as I mentioned, the biggest cost may not be the budget. It may be how you accumulate these things and the damage of uncertainty, right? With the lack of communication, right? The biggest cost isn't necessarily the budget, it's uncertainty. And the damage of the uncertainty can accumulate slowly over time. So what can happen? So you hire somebody, right? And, in that first 90 days, it's critical that the employee understands where they are, right? We use our job description, the thing that they apply to get the job actually is used to show where you are today and where you're going to head to, right? What is good and what is great and what is bad. And you want that all clear in that job description. I recommend making sure that the job description isn't just something that once they get hired, you throw it away. You continue to look at that in the one-on-ones throughout the entire time. So within the first week, that employee needs to really understand what is the comp package, what are the benefits, right? And that ties into managers don't default to silence. So managers need to have understanding of how to communicate with these about the compensation, about the benefits, and where you are now, where that employee is now, and where they can go to. That reduced ambiguity can really help employees excel, right? Another thing that's important to mention is that if these things don't happen, right, within the first 6 months or 12 months, that there's attrition because your top performers have moved on because they're not visible in the organization. They don't know where they're headed. And these are simple things to solve, just communicating effectively where someone is and where they're headed and making sure that you're recognizing those accomplishments. So there's a framework that's really easy to follow here, and it's a nice visual. I think we all know these things, but it's a nice visual to see. So I looked at, again, like, as I mentioned earlier, I like to work backwards. So, what is the outcome that you're trying to reinforce? What's the outcome you want to see? And for your company to get there, you need the values, the compensation, the recognition, and the benefits. So the benefits, recognition, and compensation are the inputs of what you offer. Right. And just one thing to just touch on recognition, because it's dear to my heart, is I recommend a shift on reward. So recognition isn't line items, they're signals. What you reinforce every day is what people should repeat. Right. So that's a beautiful thing about recognition. But again, benefits, recognition, compensation is the inputs that then is filtered through the values, right? Assuring alignment on what matters most is the values. And what we've done, in previous webinars, when we've surveyed people coming in, the values, people love their values for the most part, which is great. Well, let's make sure we promote them in the right way, right? To get the behaviors, to get the outcome that you want to reinforce and scale, right? And the result will be better retention, more performance, more growth, right? So it's really important. So we want managers to be communicating consistently, so that and having then leadership can measure those impact, right? So start thinking about all these things not as individual components, but as interconnected components of a single system designed to reinforce the company values, shape employee behavior, and then drive measurable business outcomes, right? And then we can tie it back to, so a lot of people in the survey, they said, they're not sure how to measure or the impact of the recognition program. Well, when it's all part of one cohesive system, it becomes more clear. Right. So here at Recognize, we work with companies with 50 people. We work with companies with 80,000 people. And there's a few trends that we've been seeing that are consistent across the different ones. So the first is, in a recognition program, clarity beats generosity. So a simple, well-designed program always outperforms a more complicated, disconnected one, right? So what you want is something inside their workflow, the things that they're already using. We'll talk about this a little bit more. But when things are just kind of ad hoc or not done very often, it can create that sense of favoritism. Recognition can actually backfire. And that also ties into the frequency, right? So you want something that's consistent. Doesn't have to be big, just consistent appreciation of the great work people are doing. People feel seen in the organization, which will increase revenue and productivity, right? And then if you're doing surveys, great. If you're doing no surveys, do an annual survey. If you're doing an annual survey, do a biannual survey, right? Up to maybe doing an MPS every week. Now you're getting signals 50 times a year. But what can be even more powerful is if you can get real-time data from a recognition program, from other things as well. We'll talk about it later. But when you can actually get real-time data from something like a recognition program that can be utilized, other things is also benefit utilization, manager actions. These are all things you can track on an ongoing basis. And in the age of AI, data is king, right? So you want to have that real-time data and piped into one system to be able to better understand the organization rather than ad hoc surveys. If you do a survey, there's a great book. It's still relevant today, even though it's about 10 years old, but it's called People Analytics in the Era of Big Data. And it mentions that if you do an annual survey, that means you only have one data point throughout the entire year. So an employee could be at this level most of the year, but then for 1 month out of the year, they have a spike. And what your data will show is that they have a spike the entire year. So that's why it's better to measure more often, or use tools that can provide you data that you can pipe in to understand your staff without having to ask them any questions. So the important part about recognition is that it's real time, right? Recognition isn't a program, it's a connected tissue that turns values into actions. So, benefits are passive, comp is periodic, but recognition is alive, right? These things are cyclical. It's benefits and compensation operate on a cycle, annual enrollment, quarterly reviews, yearly increases, all these things are on a cycle. But with recognition, it's real time, and that is uniquely powerful because it reinforces the values in that moment and creates that immediate feedback loop on the behavior that you want to shape. And that's what's so powerful about recognition. So I want to just highlight that if you have leaders that aren't fully understanding why recognition is important, well, it's the one thing that's real time. That's really powerful. So, as I mentioned, recognition is always on, right? It's continuous. You don't need a schedule. You don't need a meeting. You just need staff to be able to know where and how they can recognize each other. And have it embedded in the workflows you're already using. That way it's not a separate program. It's part of the tools you're already using. It's part of the habits you already have. If you have a stand-up, then tie the recognition to the stand-up. And then what you see is actually a 20% lift on engagement when there is that consistent recognition. There's never been a stats vary on the benefits of recognition. There's 0 studies that have found a decrease in performance, decrease in engagement from adding a recognition program. And the amazing thing about a recognition program is, again, you can tie it to the values. If you have a custom form, maybe you use Microsoft Forms or Typeform, whatever you're using, you just need to add a drop-down of your values. And that can help you understand which parts of the organization actually are resonating with these values. If you're using something like Recognize, then you can have it automatic. But having that structured data is so critical. Unstructured data, that could be just a bulletin board of kudos, right? That's okay, not amazing, but it's okay. But then if you can have structured data where it's actually in a spreadsheet with the manager, the value, the location, the time, right, the message, now you can actually utilize that with AI and for the reporting as well. So I recommend creating a structured recognition program that's always available, integrated, and tied to the values. Right. So kind of just keep going on what I just said there. So recognition data becomes a strategic asset when it's structured correctly. So what does that look like? For instance, let's say you believe that innovation is one of your values, but you look at the data and it's never being recognized. Well, that's a problem. Either you need to reinforce it differently, or maybe sunset it and think about something else that really represents your company. So the values should be living and breathing in your organization. And just because they're not being recognized doesn't mean it's necessarily that it's not a value that you want, but maybe you just need to look at it differently. The nice thing about having recognition data that's structured is being able to know what parts of the organization are actually recognizing people or not recognizing people. If you have a certain manager that's a leader in recognition, help them help other managers, or get them to help other managers be more recognition focused. What are they doing differently that other managers are missing, right? And that can help you identify those gaps in your program of what's stated and actually lived in your culture. And that ties in again to who's reinforcing it. So that distribution data can show, again, which departments or locations or managers are actually getting it and which aren't. And then you can do some strategic things to be able to fix that along the way and just better utilize your time, right? When you understand what's happening, you're using your time more effective, you're more effective in your career, and your own career will get an uplift from being more strategic. So really important to look at. The last thing here is how often is it happening? So the velocity of the recognitions. Is it once a year or is it on an ongoing weekly basis? So, high-performing organizations shouldn't just be collecting kudos, right? It's the ability to extract insights from your recognition patterns. And this data will reveal how the behaviors are spreading inside the organization and what gaps there are in the communication and in the culture. So moving on from recognition a little bit and talking about benefits. So again, you may have all the great benefits you need, but are they being utilized? So some things that we've seen be underutilized, things like EAP and employee assistance programs, or learning development stipends. The number one thing we need to be doing is we need to be communicating this. Again, managers need to know how to talk about these things. A study found from the Lincoln Financial Group, they found that 43% of employees said that they are more engaged with the organization after managers spoke to them about the benefits. So in those one-on-ones, in that team huddle, mention that there are these EAP programs, that there are flexible work arrangements or learning and development programs that they can be part of, right? Just communicating that they're there and helping managers have a simple script to communicate that. So another thing that managers can do is, again, just having a better understanding of where the employee is in their salary range, right? Where can they get to? Ambiguity creates a lot of problem. It creates dissatisfaction. It creates, people completely disengaged at work when they don't know where they can go. I've been there myself. I've been in a former career. I've been in a place where I didn't see any upward mobility. And so I just did the motions until I quit and moved on. I was disengaged for a long time before I quit. And that's because I didn't see anywhere to go. I didn't know where I was or where I was headed. If I had known that, I could have been more engaged and I could be going after certain projects to be able to elevate myself. Another thing is just having simple language. We don't need, let's check acronyms at the door. Let's just speak in simple, humble language. And that can really help just to communicate more effectively and reduce the sense of kind of snobbery in the organization, where people are just trying to sound smart rather than being genuine. I think being genuine is so critical these days. So again, having clear bands on the salary range, simple conversations, and then also helping people have milestones on where they can get to. Again, that's what that job description should say. If you reach these milestones, you'll get these comp adjustments or these bonuses. And that can be very, very powerful when people know where they're headed. So I touched on having those scripts, having that role playing. I love this show recently. Side note, The Rehearsal. It's a really wild show, The Rehearsal. But it highlights that we need some practice sometimes before we speak about things. One of the most painful things you can do is listen to yourself speak, record yourself and listen to yourself speak. I'll go back and listen to this webinar, for instance. I'm sure at times I'll be cringing, but it's going to help me get better at what I do. So we need that for managers too, to be able to either work with another manager on their own, to have those simple scripts to practice so that when they go in that one-on-one, they feel prepared. Nothing's worse than going to a one-on-one with a manager and you're just blabbing about the weather for an hour, right? Let's have actual real conversations. And also have managers know what they can talk about and what they can't talk about. Having clear guide rails around that. And just letting them know by talking about it and at least being confident in this simple, hey, I don't know that exactly, but we'll refer to the employee handbook later, for instance. That's really important. So just talking about it at all is better than not. Perfection will come with practice, and it's okay just to get started with explaining these things. Things like comp, for instance, and benefits. So as far as measuring is so important. So we really want to do that. So there's 4 things here that are easy to track. Here at Recognize, we have a scorecard. It's a spreadsheet, and every week, it can be a little tedious at times, but it's really important to be able to track things on a weekly basis because then you have 52 data points, right? So for instance, we track our LinkedIn, we track our sales, we track our engagement, our platform, right? Different departments have different metrics. So here are 4 for this conversation that I think are important to track. So what's the participation of your recognition program? What's the percentage of people who have received or sent recognition that week, that month? And that will lead into, maybe some goals. You can set some yearly goals, some quarterly goals, some monthly goals. And then you're tracking it on a weekly basis to be able to see if we're hitting that or not. And then we can guide the ship very quickly within that time period, rather than only checking once every 6 months. Then you could be way off track and it's going to be hard to get back on track. And it might be so much that you give up. So, so we care about the things that we measure, and we measure the things we care about. And recognition participation should be one of those things. How often recognition is occurring is also important, right? Kind of as a side note, I know that they say in recognition that it should be on the spot. Like you see something, say something immediately. I tend to disagree. If you wait a week to send a recognition, that's okay. In fact, it tells the employee, wow, they're thinking about me. They're thinking about what I did a week ago, right? And it may take a few days to kind of formulate how you want to say that positive moment. So don't stress if you didn't send a recognition at the moment, send it later. So recognition velocity is another important one. And then an easy one to track is the benefit utilization. How many employees are taking advantage of the EIP program or so forth. I mean, we're all human. We all have stresses in our life. We all have depression at times, and we're human, right? And a healthy team is a healthy company, right? And happy shareholders. So we want to make sure that people are utilizing the benefits. If they're not utilizing it, then we might as well not even have it. Maybe we shouldn't, if it's not being utilized. But I always recommend first trying and making an effort around and getting these things utilized because they're there for a reason. If you work at our company, you get the benefit of access to therapy. You get access to healthcare. You get access to different types of support. So I recommend that. And then what is your attrition of your employees at the 90-day mark or even the six-month mark? What is your attrition? And that's a really strong indicator of the health of the organization. So kind of rounding out here, this talk. Are we going to do the survey? I think the survey for this one is the one that we did up front on accident. So should we do the survey that we were supposed to do in the beginning, or should we do? Okay, we're just going to keep moving. Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah, so how clear is your total reward system today? I love doing surveys. It's one of the fun things about doing live webinars. So let's fill this out. How clear is your total reward system to employees today? I'm really curious about the answer to this one. How clear is your reward system to employees today? And we're really, really curious because we have 2 explanation points. Okay, here it comes. Somewhat clear. HR understands it. Employees don't understand it, but HR understands it. That's what the answer is here. So yeah, I wonder what we can do. I would love to have any comments in the chat. Why'd you give the answer? Why didn't you say very clear? Why'd you put somewhat clear? The results don't show up for everybody. Maybe Jess or Rue, if you can let everyone know the exact percentages of the result. Oh, great. Okay, great, Catherine. Happy to hear you can see it. Take a screenshot. Pretty interesting. We all want to be at the very clear, somewhat clear. Rewards shouldn't be that complicated. It should be, if you're using something like Recognize, it should be straightforward. It should be all in one place. Sometimes it comes down to just knowing how to navigate your wiki or your employee handbook. This kind of idea of learned helplessness. If you came from a company that didn't have a great wiki, that when you search the wiki, nothing came up, then you're probably going to do that at the next role. So I really recommend, showcasing to employees, empowering the employees to get out of learned helplessness, that you can search the wiki, you can find the answers, you can find the rewards program easily, right? And having in the tools you're already using, with Recognize, there's that Recognize icon in Teams. All you need to do is just click that, or SharePoint, super straightforward. So what are some things you can do right now in the next 30 days? Here are 4 simple things we can do. So 1, make sure that your rewards program is tied to your values. I'm assuming you love your values, but they actually ringing through with your staff. Let's get that real-time data in that recognition program. So yes, I know there's lots of stats out there that shows recognition programs, increase engagement, reduce turnover, all these benefits of having a recognition culture. But as we touched on the initial survey, it's a bit correlational. It can be a bit hard to actually have like this recognition led to this performance. But there's always other benefits like the structured data. So the more things we can tie to the rewards program, like the values, the better for the leadership to better understand the company. And let's make it so it's accessible. Any kind of benefits program should be easily accessible, right? So you want to embed it in the tools you're already using, and it tells the company that you care about that benefit or that recognition program by having it not just a separate program, not another website, not another tab, right? But you're getting push notifications or text message notifications reminding you on the recognition program, reminding you, when I woke up this morning and I looked at my phone, I got a push notification from Recognize that said, hey, what's something awesome that Jess did this week, right? It reminded me to recognize Jess for doing great work. So I recommend having that part of your workflow. And then again, simplifying the language. If you read through and you think about it from a third point of view, if you don't understand it, nobody else is going to understand it. So I want you to double check on that. And then lastly, I put some stats or some signals you can track, right? Like benefit utilization, which you're probably already tracking, but how often are you tracking it? How often are you tracking the delta change, right? And if you have an internal newsletter, does that result in more people registering for certain wellness stipends or learning stipends, right? So track the progress over time and tie that into what you're doing. Let's go ahead and read a comment by Sandra. We have a recognition program that led through leadership that is understood from HR and leadership, but is not consistent as it should be. Employees have a platform to send shout outs, which is great for ad hoc use, but not easily tracked. So I don't know what program you're using. Ideally, it should be trackable. With Recognize, I can export spreadsheets. I can look at reports anytime I want. So you definitely want to have something like that. Or at least, what the amazing thing with AI workflows like Zapier and Make.com, or Airtable, you can have a form that then is piped into Teams, that then is piped into AI, and it's really not that hard to set that up. So, definitely have that. Yeah, I love that you have it led by leadership, though. I mean, Sandra, the fact that you have a recognition program that all the leadership cares about, that's the hardest part I've found. The hardest part usually is, even though every leadership book I read says that you should have recognition as part of your program and that you should check your values and make sure they're not just a plaque on the wall that's just ad-lib, you actually have it living and breathing inside the organization. Every leader should know this, but sometimes they don't. And so you need to put it in their terms, understand what they care about. But the fact that you have that center already, that's amazing. Next step is just making it so that recognition program is reinforced. If you have an office, we have a way to put recognitions on a TV. So they're cycling through the recognitions as you walk down the hallway. You can see those recognitions. If you have people in the field, we have text messages that go out to people. So they don't need to download the app. They can just use it from text messaging. So reaching people where they are is so important for the recognition program, and tying it into what they actually are doing too. Not just, hey, great work, attaboys, but like, this project was completed on time, and so we automatically recognized you, and now people are commenting and liking and giving you points for that, which then can turn into concert tickets. That's another thing about recognition programs is you can have a great program, which is just purely gamified, intrinsic motivation, but if you can then tie in also rewards and have a budget around rewards, it just will reinforce it all and show that the company really cares about that through. And that's another way to position to leaders is that, hey, we don't know how much we're spending on the spot bonuses. We have no visibility how many gift cards we're buying. We're not paying taxes for any of our gift cards. Well, that's why you want to use a software solution so you can track all that more easily, or have some kind of workflow that pipes that data into your HRIS. Awesome. So try to do one of these things this month. Try to assess the values or tie it into the recognition program. Try to get that recognition program inside the workflows you're already utilizing. Make sure that comp language is simplified. Help people know where they are in their career and where they're headed. Awesome. So that was our webinar. We're doing part 2 on January 28th. It's called Culture, Not Campaigns, How Everyday Recognition Multiplies Manager Impact. So you'll walk away with a plug and play recognition rhythm that managers can run in under 10 minutes a day. So we want you to definitely come to that. Please come to that. Please follow us on LinkedIn. Go to our website, RecognizeApp.com. Reach out to me anytime you want. I love talking to people. That was really fun. I hope everyone had a good time. I love seeing all people from all over the country calling in for this on this Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. But I hope we got a lot out of this, and reach out. Any feedback or thoughts, Alex@RecognizeApp.com is my email address. Find me on LinkedIn. If you contact Recognize and just say, I want to talk to Alex, they'll put you right in touch with me, because that's the kind of company we are. So, okay, everybody, have a great afternoon and good rest of your morning. Take care.